Let's come to Sam Armstrong, who is live in the studio with us, who I know is just chomping at the bit. Let's just talk Suella first up. She is out on her hair. She defied the Prime Minister. She said quite a lot of things over recent weeks. She defied the Prime Minister with that article in the Times. And some of the language, I have to say, I wasn't that. Hate marches, comparing the marches with those in Northern Ireland. Poor choice of language. I think she often undermines a sensible point with some fruity language. But she was proved right on Saturday. So how on earth has the Prime Minister decided to sack her?
Yeah, and she was a politician that spoke for great swathes of the public. There are many, many people, in fact, the majority of this country agreed with her. Those protests should have been banned. And we always complain, we've done it here, you and I have complained, Julia, before, politicians that won't give a straight answer.
Yep.
She spoke, she said what she thought, she told it as it was, and the Prime Minister's reaction is, having been proved right, having frankly agreed with her, as we saw today, he was announcing exactly the same policy.
So what she said was terrible, but he's announcing that there should be new laws to crack down on extremist protests. So he's admitting in both the legislation he wants to bring forward and in what he said to Sir Mark Rowley, the Met chief, last week as well, that he agrees with her.
Look,
and then he's sacking her because he agrees with her.
He wants right-wing policies that he thinks will get him re-elected, but he still wants to be popular at North
wants to be
London
liked.
dinner
He wants to be
party
liked.
circuit.
This is the thing. Can I say, I've got a great quote, which I can't read out in full. I'm going to have to beep it a little bit, from a senior figure, a senior figure in the party, from a red wall seat, who can't come on the show, but said, but you can quote me as saying, he said, I'm beeped off. An awful lot of the party beeped off. That said, Suella Braverman doesn't actually have the right-wing constituency among Tory MPs that she has among Tory members and Tory voters. That is very much the case. She's seen as having sort of shot from the hip too many times. She says the right things, but she hasn't achieved enough. Bearing in mind, we've got the Rwanda Supreme Court decision coming on Wednesday. Wait to see how that goes. But in terms of stopping the boats. But she hasn't got the constituency among Tory MPs. The thing is here, it seems to me, you've got a Prime Minister who way behind in the polls, Labour creeping up in the polls, even amid their massive disarray over the issue of Gaza and Israel. And these, and some of the MPs supporting these horrific protest marches on Saturday. We've got that situation, that is happening. And here he is, trying to appease the Labour Party. Wes Streeting, Shadow Health Secretary, saying Suella is entirely to blame for the events on Saturday, poured petrol on the flames, as if all of these right-wing extremists and football hooligans were going to sit at home on Saturday and, having a cheese sandwich and a cup of tea, quite happily watching yet again as these some of them Islamist, pro-Hamas people march to our capital city, intimidating people. And they were just going to go, and worries, concerns about the cenotaph. We've seen other war memorials being desecrated with Free Palestine or flags draped on them. But yeah, those people were just going to sit at home. And then Suella Braverman stands up and says this. They all read the Times, obviously, these people, and they all love an ethnic minority Home Secretary, even though, of course, they're white racists, right? And yet suddenly she says that, and suddenly they're all out on the streets. This is nonsense. And Rishi Sunak is pandering to this nonsense.
Top to bottom, this is the reshuffle that The Guardian couldn't have dreamed of. This is their favourite. What we're about to see is The Guardian's favourite Conservative cabinet that we've had in the last 15 years. But all of this begs the question, who is Rishi Sunak serving here? Because there are red wall constituencies up in the country whose views, the voters of those new coalition of voters, are far removed, very far removed from the corpus of Tory MPs that are in Parliament. And what this reshuffle means is increasingly, day after day after day, Rishi Sunak is making a conscious decision. The 2019 realignment in this country, where working class people, for the first time in a very long time, said, Conservative Party, we're going to put our support in you, in Boris. That's gone. That's behind. Yeah. We're going back to the old way. And what a better symbol of return to the past than David Cameron walking up the street of Downing Street.
Now, here's the thing. I rather like David Cameron. I think he was rather good Prime Minister. He promised us a referendum, OK, only because of the threat from UKIP and, Nigel Farage now busy down up. Nigel Farage will be absolutely kicking himself not being around for all of this going on. But he's going to be appearing on I'm a Celebrity from this weekend, and my hope will win it. But David Cameron promised a referendum and then actually gave us a referendum in 2016, even though most people assume, well, you just promise these things, but you don't actually go ahead with it. He pretended to be Eurosceptic. He's not. Like most of those posh boys, he's actually a complete Europhile, really. He thinks that the technocrats know better than, us voter scum. Let's be honest, that's what they all think. And then he resigned. He felt he couldn't push through, which was wrong, because he said he wouldn't resign. But, I mean, I don't sort of bear him any ill will, because he delivered the referendum that he said he would deliver. And I think we shouldn't hold that against politicians.
But you called it just there, a posh boy, hates Brexit, resigned in protest towards it. And now he is leading a government that was elected on a mandate of delivering Brexit, change from the past, talking straight, embodying the values, the beliefs of working people up and down this country. And this government is looking, smelling, feeling like a very different beast, the opposite of what the anti-establishment vote in 2019 is.
Yeah.
And there will be many people, and I think if Nigel Farage wasn't down under, he would be saying this, we'll call this an establishment coup to undermine
completely.
the two great upsetting votes for the North London wokerati of the last century. 2019, Boris, 2016, Brexit.
But of course, they'll get slaps on the back. The local dinner parties. I consume lots of different media in the morning. I've got sort of lots of phones and iPads and things going, because I want to know what everyone's saying. Fascinating to see the likes of Beth Rigby, political editor on Sky News, saying, oh, David Cameron, the grown-ups are back in the room. What they mean by that is people we agree with. That's what they mean. People although she doesn't really like the Tories, that's very obvious, but he's the acceptable face of the Tories. But this is the thing. Rishi Sunak is so far behind in the polls. The things he said he wants to deliver on in terms of the economy, but also stopping the boats, and maintaining our borders and NHS. None of these changes pushes us any further forward to that. And we know that the only reason the Tories were able to get in 2019 with that magnificent majority was because of that appeal to working class voters. When you sack the Home Secretary, who is one of the few people speaking up and saying, this isn't going to fly with us anymore. As I said, when you sack the one person who's saying, the house is on fire, the house is on fire, we have Islamist, pro-Hamas terrorists walking down our streets, shouting anti-Semitic slogans, flying anti-Semitic terrorist flags, not the vast majority of people on those marches, but an awful lot of them. And that's not going to be acceptable to the British people. Jewish people scared of going into central London. I know, because they're friends of mine and friends of my daughter, and they don't go anywhere near central London anymore because they are scared. When you see a cabinet minister, Michael Gove, mobbed for walking down the street, mobbed in a train station simply for being who he is by an Islamist group. And she says, this isn't acceptable. This is a hate mob. This cannot be allowed. To think that she is the problem and that she has stoked up the reaction of, yes, some football hooligans, yes, some far-right types, the Tommy Robinsons, yes, but also millions of ordinary, right-thinking, good people who just don't want our country to go down this route. And when you say that she is the problem, when she is the person saying, the country, the house is on fire, and she shouts, fire, fire, to alert everybody and wants action taken, and you get rid of her, when you blame her, when you say she is the problem, but you ignore the arsonists, you're part of the problem. Rishi Sunak is now part of the problem.
And what did they call her? The P word. Populist. That's what they call her.
They called her a lot of other P words.
But I hear the word populist, and what I hear is the fact that the Home Secretary was doing what the country wanted.
Why is populist an insult? I consider it to be a compliment.
But now we have the grown-ups, and what's the key criteria in a grown-up? They're prepared to listen and hear to what the British public want and say, no, you don't know what you want.
They listen to the technocrats, to big business. Yeah.
This is, I'm afraid, a step backwards in time, and Rishi Sunak, sad as it pains me as it says this as a Conservative, I just believe has signed his own P45.
Yeah. Who does he think this is going to appeal to? Does he genuinely think that the Guardianistas and the BBC watchers, that they're all going to sign up to this?
He is marching straight every day, closer and closer and closer to the executive lounge at Heathrow Airport, where he's going to be off to California to be VC of a large tech fund.
Yeah, I do just think it's extraordinary. One of the other things I think is extraordinary from this weekend is looking at the footage. Now, again, I consume lots of different media. I look at TV shows across the spectrum, whether it's Channel 4, whether it's the BBC, whether it's our channel, other rival channels. I consume different newspapers. I do not live in a social media bubble. I deliberately follow people that I know I disagree with on lots of things, and I learn more from that. And I just think that most people in this country thought that two completely different events happened on Saturday. They thought there was a perfectly peaceful and nice pro-Palestinian march for people who wanted peace. And then there were a whole bunch of horrible thugs who were violent and who were stoked up by Suella Braverman. And that's, if you watch BBC Channel 4, that's what you think happened. If you consume other media, you see a lot on social media, you will think, well, actually, it was all just horrible violence on the pro-Palestinian, horrible anti-Semitic slurs and shouting and the like, and intimidatory behaviour. And then there was this little scuffle near the cenotaph when the police kettled some right-wingers who wanted to come protect the cenotaph. Whereas actually, both and neither are true at the same time. We now in an American-style situation where half of the country thinks the facts are this and half the country thinks the facts are this. You can't have a debate about the rights and wrongs of the facts if you don't even know what the facts are.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And what I saw was a media class that was intent, come what may, to whip this up to get Suella. And look, I adore the press lobby, the political journalists in this country that hold our politicians to account and keep the story going on. But what was clear to me was they were on a hunt. They smelled blood. And over the weekend, they've gone off in the best pursuit of political journalists in this country, which is to get a scalp. Yeah. They've got one. Rishi Sunak has given in, but woe betide him, because he won't be the first Prime Minister to give in to the lobby that demands a scalp and then goes for you on the consequences of giving it them. Also,
you've got a lobby, by the way, who love Jeremy Hunt. Oh, they love Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, who is just literally the worst person to be in the job. I'd like to point out, actually, it is fascinating, with David Cameron back in the government. Extraordinary. This is a man who only a month ago accused the Prime Minister of failing to act in Britain's long-term interests when he basically scrapped the northern leg of HS2. So he's already been big differences, but maybe in foreign policy they're more aligned. Anyway, lots.
But hang on, China, his era, golden era, very much looked on poorly now. Tory backbenchers won't like that.
Yeah, exactly. So much to talk about.